which was nice. Wasn't really threatening, win or anything like that, but that was good. And overall, just kind of just whatever weekend. There was no MMA this weekend, so it makes it a little easier for me. And yeah, ready to get into today. And today is I saw this even last night before I looked at projection. I mean, it's a freaking wild pitching slate as far as I'm concerned. I mean, there's high priced options, there's mid priced options, which seems kind of insulting, and then there's like low priced options, which seem kind of insulting. It really just kind of depends on where you want to go. I think it's kind of an interesting slate to kind of break down here.
Definitely, I agree completely. For what it's worth, I mean, I know they're not showing up in the player pools on DraftKings, but in case you built early or whatever, the Dodger game is not on this slate. No. And something changed that I missed. So I just want to make sure you aren't looking at that. All right, but yeah, with that said, let's go game by game and see if we can figure out what we want to do here. I definitely think there's an argument to go a very a wide range of ways. All right, so Washington, Atlanta to start it off. Sheets, what do you like?
So with all of that said, this is probably one of the games that I'm least interested in as far as the pitching goes. I'm not really getting to much either of these guys. As far as the hitting goes, I can't imagine Washington being in such great play here. But let's just see. No, not really. Let me see if Atlanta's showing up. It's weird. Even Atlanta's showing up as I have them rated like 4th or something like that, even on raw points, just because there are other options. Yeah. So I guess Atlanta's fine. And that's pretty much all I have from this game is maybe some Atlanta, but none of the pitching.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused here. Is there I understand that Irvin's been pretty good, but just zero ownership in Atlanta. Everybody's just done with them, I guess. This can't be. I'm just trying to look through, and maybe it is accurate. Man, I'll tell you what. If you give me a low-owned Atlanta team, I will jump all over that. So I am in on Atlanta, and for what it's worth, it's 82 degrees with 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out. Like I said, Irvin's been, pretty good this year, but this is Atlanta at home, and they are really tough. Historically really tough. They haven't been quite the same thing this year, but Sean Murphy's back. I'm into the Atlanta thing quite a bit actually today. So, and I think Fried is a guy you consider if you wanted to get off the chalk. Like there's a path for him. Like if he's just got it going where he could throw a complete game in this type of matchup. But the strikeouts are something you definitely worry about. All right, Toronto at Chicago White Sox.
So I'll start with this one.
Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, with respect to my projections, I have Toronto as being tied for best value, and I have them kind of like 3rd or 4th as far as raw points, and not really anything for the White Sox. Now let me talk about something different. Okay, so first of all, you have Kevin Gausman, who's only 8,500 against the White Sox. Unless the wind is blowing out 30 miles an hour or whatever it is, seems kind of almost like an insulting price. And as a result, he's going to get owned. Now, the only thing is that there's just a lot of options today. So I don't think anybody's going to get that owned. And if somebody does get that owned, it's probably worth fading just because there's so many options. But I do have him rated really, really strongly. And I know I don't want to have to talk you into this as far as maybe some other people, but as bad as the White Sox are, you know who's really bad right now? Toronto. Okay, like Toronto has not been hitting the ball at all. And you have Mike Clevenger, who's like 2K or something like that. He's 5,000. Now, listen, if you look at his game logs, you're just not going to be interested. He hasn't even made it through 5 innings yet this season. But I don't know. I mean, I do wish that it was a smaller slate without all these options, because he'd be like 0% owned anyway, Right. But I will just say that I ran some builds, and I was getting more of him than I would have expected. So I have to throw it out there. Clevenger at 5K is probably too cheap. So I like both the pitchers. Toronto does show up as a top stack, and that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, I have Gaussman, rated right at the top. For what it's worth, there is a little bit of potential for like maybe the game is delayed a little bit at the beginning, but it looks like the rain sort of goes away. It's 62 degrees with 8-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to right center. It's I agree about the Gaussman, and I think you could definitely take shots on Clevenger because no one's going to play him because Toronto is looking like it might be one of the most popular stacks, which I think is actually fine if you're not going to do the Kip Clevenger thing. Well, I shouldn't say it's fine. It feels like we're paying a little too much for a team that, is only recently started to kind of hit. I don't know where I stand with it. So I could definitely see a 3-prong game here. We haven't seen that many explosions. Toronto had I clicked on the wrong name here. They had the big outburst on Sunday. In general, like they haven't been this elite offense that we were sort of hoping, but they do have these little explosions here and there. So I don't really know what I want to do with Toronto, and I don't know what I'm going to do with Clevenger, but they're both on my list, and I probably would avoid at this current ownership, if this is where it is, I probably would avoid any 5-man stacks of Toronto, and probably will talk myself into playing more Clevenger just because of the ownership for Toronto. All right, the Cubs in Milwaukee.
Well, you have one of the good spend ups here. I mean, I have 3, so this is one of them. Peralta 10-5 certainly has upside as he always does. I actually getting some Ben Brown as well at much lower ownership than a lot of guys. Let's put it that way. So Ben Brown, I have at 7% ownership. It's not like I haven't rated that high, but I talked to him a little bit about this yesterday. Doesn't really apply as much today as it did yesterday, but he's definitely rated below some of the top guys, even some of the top values. But you're getting such an ownership break that it's probably worth taking a shot. So I actually like both sides of the mound in this game for different reasons. Peralta obviously is going to get played; it's obvious, whatever. But Ben Brown, I think, is totally reasonable. As far as the hitting goes, I mean, not really much of anything.
I would be concerned a little bit with Brown. Like he's been pitching in relief. His last start, he threw 66 pitches, and he'd given up 1 hit, and had 6 strikeouts in 4 innings. So I don't know if I could realistically consider Ben Brown on this type of slate. Freddie Peralta, I definitely like. I don't in general always want to attack the Cubs, but Freddie Peralta has a pretty decent sample size with these guys. He's 100 plus at bats is sort of like my normal samples. That's a reasonable enough one to take a shot on. And they have a 38% strikeout rate, and they're hitting 160 off of them in those 100 at bats. I know it's only 100. It's not like an amazing sample size, but that's enough to make me want to get rid of my Cubs sphere and play a little bit of Peralta here. So I'm in there. I'm in there with the Peralta as the other chalk pitcher that I'm sort of.
Any hitting here or not really?
I didn't get to anything. If I did, it would probably be on the Milwaukee side, but nothing that stands out. Maybe Gary Sanchez as a one-off is fine, but nothing that really stands out for me.
So Kansas City, Minnesota. I mean, you have Cole Reagans who alongside of Peralta and Wheeler, like 3 very very legitimate, expensive pitchers. What do you have, like 40 strikeouts in his last game? I mean, that guy's freaking insane. He actually had 12 in 6 innings. Okay. And they took him out. I think he was perfect until they took him out or something like that. He had give him 1 hit or something like that. Not perfect. He just had the 1 hit though. I mean, what are you going to say? I mean, he's got incredible upside. He's expensive and he's going to be. I currently have him lower owned than Peralta Wheeler. Just watch that throughout the course of the day. I currently have like Peralta and Wheeler both about between 20 and 25, and Cole Reagan's closer to 15. But we'll check that out. But I definitely like that. The other side, I'm not getting to the Minnesota dude, nor am I getting to any of the.
Yeah, I actually I like Reagan's. This is an interesting game because there is a higher total here, but you've got the strikeout upside with Reagan's. It's really hard. It's going to come down to which one we feel the best about, obviously. But it is like you said. When you texted me last night, it's going to be a tough pitching slate.
Yeah.
And Reagan's has the, almost a 7K prop. Like, I think I'm, again, I would make him one of the priorities, whatever that means. I'm not getting to Woods Richardson. It is interesting. The total is so low. I think that on this slate, you could certainly consider playing the Royals. Talk about an offense that has like a boom bust in it, but they also have like cheap pieces at the bottom, partly because they've been bad. And then at the very top, they've got the studs who have been awesome, like, Witt and Perez. So it's sort of an interesting stack, I think, in a game that no one's really looking at. A little wind blowing out today. It's like 163 degrees, but I think Kansas City is an interesting get different stack today. And I certainly wouldn't mind ending up with some of them. Not fun to fully 5-man against the Twins in general. Good bullpen. They tend to be, teams that tend to platoon their players like after, new pitcher every inning type of thing. They just are harder to get to, and the Twins will do that. From when they take Woods Richardson out, they're really they have a plan. They do the same thing. They manage it like it's a postseason game. That's sort of how they manage. So not usually my favorite stacks, but I do think at low ownership I can talk myself into at least a mini stack of Kansas City. Arizona and Texas.
So this seems to be kind of like the classic game you want to play the hitters from on a slate like this, because there's going to be, some pretty chalky options, and I don't see Arizona and Texas quite as popular. And both these teams can get it going. It's not the greatest guy to stack against, like Dunning, but I don't know. I've done okay against him. And Fat, I mean, he's every once in a while he could be okay, but I presume the weather's good enough, right, in Texas. And on a slate where I think a lot of
roof is closed, probably.
You think so?
It's a poor hitter's park anyway. It's okay if the roof's open, but it's in general, I would say, on the I'll take a look at
the Well, in my early runs, I'm getting like I'd say decent. I'm getting some like Arizona, Texas. It feels like one of the pivot stacks you're supposed to make, just because I think the other ones are kind of obvious. But in any case, neither pitcher for me, and maybe some Arizona and Texas.
Yeah, I can't get to either of these pitchers, but I just want to point out that Fott, he's been pretty good. and at the same time, he's going to give up some home runs here and there because he's around the plate. And this is a dangerous Texas team, so I am sort of stuck on both sides. I think that you can make some arguments for Arizona. I think Texas is the more appealing side, but I think they're both in play, and I don't have any huge. I like Atlanta better. But yeah, I'm okay with getting after this one a little bit. I do think Texas will be the low-owned side, and partly because Fod has been good, and mostly Dunning has until his last start, I believe. Anyway, I'm very open to both offenses. I prefer the Texas offense, especially because guys like Jock Peterson batting third are always annoying because you might get only 2 at-bats out of them. But I think I side with Texas a little bit ahead of Arizona. And definitely both are in consideration. Certainly not using either of the pitchers, even though, I would say, Thought's been really, really good, especially against good offenses for whatever reason, including my Dodgers. All right, Cleveland and Colorado.
I currently have Cleveland as the highest projected and highest owned, but not by a lot. As you mentioned earlier, Toronto is getting a great deal of ownership here, and they're projecting pretty well. So if you do want to play Cleveland, it's not, you know what I mean? You're not going to get like complete chalk central. People are going to play them, obviously, but it's not like they're going to stand out to such degree. And we'll get to other options in a minute. So I think Cleveland looks fine. The one thing they're not doing this time is they're not I think Colorado's put up enough runs recently to kind of scare people off of this streaming pitchers against them anymore. So McKenzie's not really getting too much love here. I don't think on this slate with all these other options I can do it. So for me, yeah, I guess I'll play some Cleveland. And probably that's much of all I'm going to do in this game.
I like both sides in this game. McKenzie is the profile is the absolute worst kind of pitcher you could have at Coors. 1, he's wild. 2, the fly ball pitcher. And then he gives up, I guess that sort of goes along with 2, but he gives up a ton of home runs. So I'm very interested in all sides of this. He also, his breaking pitches don't break there. Like everything about this feels like a good both sides. So I have these two as obviously they're going to be popular. Obviously there's nothing special about what I'm saying, but I do think these are my second and third favorite offenses behind Atlanta as of right now. All right.
All right. So the team that I'm getting so far the most of are the Yankees. As we go into this Angels-Yankees game, just they just look to be, I don't say fairly priced, but whatever. But it is, I guess, a little disrespect for Canning. I mean, Canning's not that bad.
He's been one of the worst pitchers in baseball this season. Like,
I guess
pretty safe to say. I know he had a couple of decent starts lately. Like he had, but for a while he went like his first 6 starts, he just got lit up every single time. There was a lot of talk that how is this guy how is the worst pitcher in baseball still in baseball? So the narrative's kind of turned on him a little bit, although he's been better lately. Sorry.
So I have the Yankees as my highest owned right now, and they project pretty well. And for whatever reason, they're not getting owned all that much. I can't imagine that staying the case, especially based on what you just said. I mean, obviously Canning's not been doing well and people know it. So I don't know. Yankees look good to me. Cortez, listen, anybody that pitches for the Yankees, I'm not playing them, so it's fine. It's nice that I have a good analytical take to like all the Yankee pitchers. Just completely X them out of all of my player pools. And let me just take an honest look. He's in fairness, Cortez is low owned, which is good. And the Angels, even though they've been, he wants about outperforming. I remember when Trout went down, I was joking that they would have a 2.5 team total every game, but they've been doing just fine. But I don't know. Again, slate seems too strong for me to take a shot on Cortez at that price on this day. So for me, it's going to be Yankees or nothing.
Yeah, I like the Yankees. I don't think the price is unreasonable based on results from Cortez in the matchup, for what it's worth. But I don't know that I want to do it on this slate with I think I prefer the Gausman, Peralta, Reagans guys a little bit more. But I like the Yankees as well, and I think that they are going to be low because you've got to pay for them like more than Coors. Now it's a huge stadium downgrade, and they're going cross country to play the Angels, but they still have a 5.1 run total or whatever. I'm in on this. I think that this makes a lot of sense. If the ownership stays low, I think it's totally worth it. It's not like Aaron Judge needs the benefits of playing in Yankee Stadium to be awesome. Juan Soto, I feel like every time, I don't know what happens, but I feel like every time I look, he's got like 30 fantasy points. I've always been, at the Verdugo. It sort of builds out. You could have like literally. I don't know. I like the idea of all the Yankee outfielders, and then you try and figure out what to do with the other 2 spots. It's mostly going to be Volpe and probably Glaber, but or Wells. But yeah, I'm totally into the Yankees, and then you've got like LeMahieu, like supposedly back in. Well, I don't know. He's up in the air to play tonight. I don't know whether he'll play. If he does play, though, they're projecting to bat 9th. That's just even better for the stack. So I'm in on taking the Yankees. I also don't mind like getting to a tiny bit of Griffin Canning. If I play just to get weird at large field stuff, why not throw a Canning and Clevenger lineup out there to go sort of counter all of this crazy, spend up at pitching? You're certainly going to be different. And I think Cortez is reasonable, but I just would rather play the other guys. That's the best way to put it. But I'm in on this Yankees idea, and I'm a little surprised that the total is so high for the Angels. I don't know what to do with that. I just thought it was interesting that it's almost 4. If you wanted anybody from the Angels, who I'd play, it'd be Joe Adell. Anyway, we can move on.
Yeah. So Houston at Seattle, and this is going to be, I guess, the chalk SP2. That
Who?
being Hunter Brown.
Really? You think so?
I do. He's 6,500 and he's against Seattle. And what people, they love to do it. They just love to play against Seattle. The only thing is do you really need it? So I mean, I usually judge things based on what my initial runs look like without the contest sims. And without the contest sims, I'm getting just all kinds of pairings with Hunter Brown. As a matter of fact, those big upside pitchers, I'm not even getting as much of as I thought. Like the Gaussman Brown combination for me is the most popular combination I'm getting to, which is now. With that said, I mean, it's if that in fact ends up being the case, and we'll track this and we'll track ownership. I would have no problem playing with Seattle. Every once in a while, I mean, Hunter Brown has this reputation for having talent from expectations, and he throws a good game every once in a while. But if you just look at his game log, it's not great. So we'll see. We'll see. The interesting one is on the other side of this. So let me just kind of share a couple of things. So when I first ran my builds with the contest sims, I had to make sure I didn't get more than 92% Houston. Okay, like they kept on giving me all of this Houston, and I'm just kind of like, before I even looked and saw who was pitching, I was like, oh, maybe like they're against somebody bad or whatever it is. And I looked at it. So Luis Castillo is pitching on the other side. I do see that Luis Castillo is about 10 to 13, 10, 12% owned or something like that. Now it's a tough slate. There's a lot of options, but it wouldn't be the first time that we underestimated Luis Castillo this season. Okay, listen, Houston obviously has got name value. They're better. They have guys, whatever. But Luis Castillo could put up 30 in this spot. I mean, he could. And I'm just really not in the mood to play Houston, if you want to know the truth. So for me, I'm actually thinking that Castillo is a pretty decent pivot off of all that other stuff. Like, he's 700 more than Gaussman. So it's going to be tough to play him instead of Gaussman. And then once you get up to his price, I think people are going to want to probably pay up for the better options, being Peralta or whatever, against the better matchups. But boy, oh boy, I still have this thought that Houston, even though they've been better, that they just, so much of their love is based on name value and stuff like that, that I don't know, man. I'm just kind of inclined to take a shot. So in summary, I think that Hunter Brown is going to project very, very well, but watch for ownership. And I think that Castillo is probably a pretty good pivot off of all that. So that's my I guess what you call it, 2-prong, call it 3-prong, however you want to describe this.
Yeah, I agree with some of what you said for sure. Like, okay, so I definitely can get behind the Seattle thing. The only thing is I don't know that Seattle's going to end up being that low owned because they're pricing. Okay. And they're going up against, like you said, Hunter Brown, who's had his struggles this year. I don't think it's going to be a natural everybody play Hunter Brown thing because there's enough other pitchers on the slate, but I do think that he is going to be the cheap guy that people definitely, play. And I get it. I mean, for example, like he and Castillo have the same strikeout prop. They're expected, and actually, and let's see what Saberson has of that. They've got them basically exactly the same.
Yeah.
So it's really hard not to argue with that. For what it's worth, Houston's been the 4th best offensive team in baseball against right-handed pitching in terms of OPS, the 2nd in batting average, and the fewest strikeouts in baseball against right-handed pitching.
Eesh.
So I am not going to do the Castillo thing.
Okay.
Now, can he do it? For sure. He doesn't have a huge sample size with them. They've hit, 230? He's got a decent enough K rate, 26, 27, not ideal. Actually, Caratini's not going to play, so you can throw that out. So basically, the numbers are going to be pretty strong against him. So now Jordan Alvarez is 5 of 12 with 3 home runs off of him and a double, 4 extra base hits and 12 at-bats. That's pretty crazy. Anyway, I can't do the Castillo thing, but I was actually interested in the Houston side a little bit. Just because I thought they'd be so unowned, and they will be.
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm getting 90%.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a bad. I think that's kind of interesting, but it's a little too cute for when there's some really good stacks out there that I like. So I think I prefer the Seattle thing. They're the hipster way I would go, and I think they're going to have some ownership, like I said, because of the pricing. But Seattle definitely is the cheap stack that makes sense to me. So I'm in on that a little bit, even though I am also going to have my exposure to Hunter Brown. I just will not have the Castillo thing, just because Houston's been better and they just don't strike out enough for me. I noticed that you like more than most tournament player, especially projection-based people, you tend to like to go different at pitching more than most people do. And I like that. I think you're always looking for an angle to get different at pitcher.
So as I want to say I lied. So as I was saying that Hunter Brown's going to be the chalk, yeah, that could be. But I'm getting a lot of the San Diego guy today. So Matt Waldron, I'm currently in my current runs getting 30% of him. And so I guess if I'm getting it, then other people are too. He's only 6,200. I have him. Sabersham has him projected higher than Hunter Brown at 6,200.
Yeah,
for whatever that's worth. So I definitely like that. And then, of course, because the way contest sims work, depending on your settings, you can get a bunch of Miami stacks here if you want. Luzardo. Boy, I would like to like him. I really would, because I have him at 5% ownership. He's definitely weaker than some of these other options, but I don't know. Didn't he just have a really good game? He's got 3 straight games over 20 fantasy points, and the last 2, 28. Not the greatest matchup in the world, but boy, now you kind of like tease me a little bit by telling me I like to kind of go off the board with pitching. Maybe this is another example. Like maybe just try to just play Luzardo. Who's playing that? I don't know. As I said, there's a lot of guys that could put up numbers today, and I think that if you go with the uber chalky ones, I think you're probably making a mistake.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a mistake, because I really feel like you just get pitching right and figure it out. I really don't. That's always been my thing, but like I get it. Like I actually don't have an issue with the idea of the Luzardo thing. I guess that the biggest problem I would have is that both of these, like, first of all, you're going to have a very popular Waldron, which I'm probably going to have some as well. I mean, I shouldn't have said that Brown was the obvious spend. I think that Waldron is going to be just as popular. But Miami they don't hit much, but they don't strike out that much against righties. And then on the other side, you've got, what's it called? San Diego, and I'm trying to go through my number. They're like basically like they don't hit much, but they also don't strike out much either. Like, it's just, I don't know where to go with this game. So basically, I think what I end up doing is maybe get a little bit of exposure to Waldron and I think that I think your Luzardo thing is like worth taking a shot or two. I think I might do that, just because I do think there's upside for him. And even in those games where he's been pitching well, we haven't seen him like ramp up the Ks like crazy this year. Although he did, I guess that's the Mets he did, and even Philadelphia before that. Yeah, I think Luzardo is a reasonable idea. So I'm on board, Sheets. I like Luzardo as the other, I guess, a get weird pitching play. He's the kind of guy with the upside that could win it for you. The problem is there's going to be a lot of guys like that today, I think, that are going to have big days.
Yep.
All right, and then we get to
that wasn't enough. You have like Zach Wheeler, who's got a big projection, along with Peralta, probably the best raw projection on the slate, and he's 11K. It's tough, but throw him into the hopper. You know what I mean? I don't know which one to pick, but definitely throw him into the hopper. I thought that I'd be getting more Philly, but I'm not. Maybe something with the weather or something like that. So maybe it's kind of silly if I ask you, but who do you like better, Wheeler or like any of the 7 guys that we talked about? So I'll throw that to you. You like Wheeler, and how much? And do you like any Philly?
So I have Wheeler below Gaussman, below Reagan. I think I have Reagan's Gaussman are my 2 favorites, with Wheeler, Peralta next as the spend ups, and then I guess Brown and Waldron as the spend downs, with Luzardo as the get weird in the middle play. That's how I've got it ranked right now. I do think that this is a weird thing, because I think if this game was in Philadelphia, that Philadelphia would be the chalk, including Coors. Now Arizona has a little bit of that, the old Tampa Bay thing. What I was saying about Minnesota earlier, they play games like they're postseason, games a little bit. They tend to bring in everybody they can, get it's just not like they're going to like let someone out there just cruise and not care. They just play very competitive, which means it's harder to stack against them than some other teams. However, like I don't care that it's 58 degrees in San Francisco. That's what every game is. I've seen teams score 15 runs there before. I don't see why you put an offense this good in there that they can't do it. And yeah, their price is high and there's better stacks. But man, if you want to just play a really low-owned Philadelphia stack who may in fact have the best matchup on the slate, or certainly one of them, how can we fault that? Like, that's an awesome spot. So I think Philadelphia is Philadelphia and the Yankees, sort of to sum it up for me, like, there are two teams that, like, yeah, it's a stadium downgrade, and that's really the only reason why you're not going to be getting people owning these guys. Like, I'll play them. I'll just play I'll play the good offenses in that situation. The problem is I also really like Atlanta, and I like the Cleveland, Colorado, which I might just have to say, you know what, too much ownership probably. That's probably my only reason. And I also think there's something to your Seattle idea. So you got a lot of options today. This is a really good.
A lot of options.
There's a lot of ways to go with this slate. So I'm going to, again, I'll touch on it later today, but I did want to take a quick look at FanDuel because they've got that 150 thing going.
Yeah, I'm playing a couple of that.
Yeah. And I wanted to see, because the pitching, when it's this tough, I tend to just want to go with the guy who I feel like has the highest ceiling and the highest, the most safety or whatever. And like, they've got Peralta as the highest owned. I don't think he has the most safety. I think people are going to play Castillo over there. I think it's a mistake to play him over the Wheeler, Gausman, Reagans. And I think the Gausman's price difference is going to keep people off him. So it's kind of interesting to see it, actually. For what it's worth, just in terms of K props, I know I like to mention them. Peralta does have the highest one on the slate. Reagans is second, Wheeler's third. And then you get everybody sort of clumped up around. Gausman's fourth, for what it's worth. And Castillo's down in that sort of next clump with the cheap guys. So that's why I wouldn't be getting to him. But in terms of hitting, I think you can get to most of what you want on FanDuel as well. I just think you're going to see a lot more Arizona because they're cheaper. And I think you're going to see just as much, if not more, Toronto and probably more Braves over there.
I think what I'll do at the 6 o'clock, or even though it's 7:20, we can start at 6. I guess doesn't make a difference. I think I'll hand build the jumbo ones for FanDuel.
Nice. And I've got a really stupid prediction that I shouldn't make about the basketball that I want to throw out there, but I really think it's going to sound so stupid. I think this Minnesota series is going 7, and they're down 3-0, and I really think Minnesota is going to come back and win a few of these games. If they get the one tonight, I really feel like it's a 7-game series, and I think they've got a shot. I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like too many people have written this series off completely, and I think Minnesota probably should have won every game so far.
I still think the freaking Pacers series is going 7.
I think it did go 7. We just missed it.
You know what I mean? How is this over? You know what I mean? Like, and what was annoying is that, like, everybody kind of sensed the whole game that they were going to lose. I wasn't exactly sure how it was going to happen. It was like so annoying.
It was. They literally didn't get a shot off for like 5 possessions in a row from 3 minutes down to 1 minute left. It was like no shots off. It was ridiculous. Yeah. But it was funny because they were great for a 4-game series. Those were pretty high. Like, they were pretty fun to watch. I really enjoy the Indiana style. And I love Carlisle. I think he's just an awesome coach. I do want to say, like, we're really sad about Bill Walton and Grayson Murray this weekend. It was a weird sports weekend, man. And I was sitting here watching Grayson Murray, hoping he was going to make the cut, and then he withdraws, and I don't know idea what's going on. And the next thing we find out, man, it's crazy. Anyway.
Listen, there's a couple of things about that. Listen, I'm not an expert in anything, but I mean, going backwards, like Bill Walton, I mean, just go through, like, if you're lazy, just go through Twitter and see people's like best Bill Walton clips. Like, first of all, like, it depends on what rabbit hole you want to go down. Just as kind of like a color man, funniest guy on like the face of the earth.
Without a doubt.
I mean, and then like to go back into like his history, like personally, and like all the other stuff he had going on, like going back to his 60s stuff with Wooden and all that stuff. Just a fascinating guy, on many levels. And with respect to the Grayson Murray thing, I mean, listen, I just say this all the time, like, like mental illness is freaking nasty business. It's not about, oh my God, the guy's got a great life, what's his problem? It's just not like that. It's just not like that. It's like a physical thing. You can have everything going for you, and you nobody can know what's going on in your head. And it's heart goes out to him and everybody else that suffers from that kind of stuff. It's nasty.
Absolutely. That was really painful, and obviously something very close to, our family runs an anti-suicide. It's just a very, I can relate a lot to the things that were happening there. But I also did want to say about Bill Walton, it was a big part of my life growing up. Like, it was, I met him a number of times because I was just go to every UCLA game as a kid, and he was just the best. He's hilarious. And actually, anybody who hasn't watched it, there's the 30 for 33 part series on him called Luckiest Man in the World. I think you really should check it out. He is truly like one of a kind, absolutely hilarious guy. Anyway. All right. Well, good luck, everybody.
I'll give you guys one link to search for. I'm not going to post. You guys can find it pretty easily. Like all the different announcer stuff that he did. Like Aaron Burr posted it, but a lot of other people posted it too. Is it just literally it's the most amazing clip of him talking about Boris Diaw, which
it's so funny.
I mean, I just can't. I just can't even get through it. And then, the best part of it, well, you find different little nuggets of it, when you listen to something 1,000 times. But hearing the announcer just barely avoid cracking up, which is just so freaking funny. Anyway, that's all I have.
Now, Sheets, hold on one second before we